Our next guest is a storyteller who has carried us from the porch of Mayberry to the edge of the universe and now all the way to Queensland's Gold Coast, where paradise turns poison into his new movie that's starring Jude Law and Vanessa Kirby. It's also got Sydney Sweeney in it. Eden, congratulations, Ron. You've really done it all with this film. It looks great.
Thank you. It's such a great cast. Also, Ana de Armas, who's fantastic in the movie. I'm so proud of the work she did. Just great artists, top to bottom. I wouldn't have done this film, if I couldn't have put together that kind of cast. It's an indie film. It's not a Hollywood movie. It's a labor of love. No studios. We were just shooting out there. You mentioned Queensland. The movie's actually set in the Galapagos, which is where I first discovered that story. It's a true crime thriller, and it's a wild one with great characters, great twists and turns. So we shot the dialogue portion in Queensland, which had its own challenges. And then we shot, a lot of exterior scenes, wildlife, and so forth in the actual Galapagos. So I'm really glad the movie's out in theaters, because if people go, it's Hans Zimmer's score, it's these big vistas, and this, it really, I think, transports audiences in a cool way.
I thought it was spectacular, Ron, the volcanoes and the terrain, the crashing waves, all of it, the visuals. You've done so much on film. I'm curious, what movie-making muscle did Eden, what new demand was it for you in this film?
Well, it was a tighter schedule than I normally work on, but it was also, I've done a lot of movies based on real events, as you know, starting with Apollo 13, which was my first one. But Cinderella Man and Rush and Frost Nixon since then, and others. 13 Lives was one I'm really proud of. It was my previous movie based on real events. But this one it's a true crime thriller. It's dark. It's edgy. The characters are this is a cautionary tale. They make mistakes, man, and they pay for them, or others pay for them. And so it was that thriller aspect that was at times, harsh and brutal, that just went a little further than what I was used to. It's why I really wanted actors, like Jude Law, Ana de Armas, Sydney Sweeney, so charismatic, but also really, really committed artists. And they worked hard. They really wanted to bring these characters to the screen with all the fun twists and turns.
And you've been chasing this story for 15 years. Is it something that this just takes 15 years to put this together, or the timing was right? How did it take so long?
A bit of both, but took some guts on my part. As I said, it was kind of different from what I've done before, and I had to come to terms with the fact that all the characters make some tough decisions along the way in this survival story. It's based on real events, and there's a lot of research that we could do. You can even go online and look these characters up, and we use some of the footage at the end of the movie just to let audiences know for sure that this all really happened. This isn't Hollywood stuff that we're making up. It's like a season of Survivor. But people really died,
I've heard that you've compared even our friend Shaq's hand to John Wayne's hand. So I'm interested to hear, when you met John Wayne and you met Shaq, there was some kind of similarity there, I guess.
Well, just that suddenly my hand looked like I was 5 years old. And Shaq's is bigger than the Duke's. But Duke he was a big man, but even then, outsized hands. He could easily palm a basketball, no problem.
And I'm not sure people know this much about you, but you're quite the basketball player. I hear that you could run the point guard, you could play the two, and that at one point, is this true? You turned down a role on the hottest show, Bonanza, just so that you could coach your little brother's basketball team, the Howard's Hurricanes. Are you kidding me?
Well, we were in contention that year, and the kids cared. They really cared, and so did I. But I also, now look, truth be told, I was never a varsity starter. I did pretty well. I was co-captain of the JV team. So, just to put it into proper perspective, but, leave me open, I could be dangerous.
So you had a role in Bonanza, but you thought coaching your little brother's basketball team was more important?
Yeah, and we won the championship that year, so I think I made a good call.
Yeah, and also I think dealing with children can probably help you as a director, correct? I mean, sometimes you have to deal with that stuff, right?
At that time, you're on to something because at that time I was really too young to be a coach in this youth league. Because I was like, 16, 15. But my dad signed up as though he was the coach, but he knew nothing about basketball. And so I was officially the assistant, but I was really the head coach. Hey, man, I even got thrown out of some games.
Oh, wow, yeah. You're feisty.
I wanted my boys to get a fair shake out there.
I also want to hear you tell me the story about the Franklin Canyons shoot. We're talking when you were super young playing the character of Opie, and this is the classic scene of the credits. You're barefoot, you got your fishing rod, and your job is to sling a rock into the pond. But at that moment, you learned some movie magic. Could you tell that story here on the show?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I literally was 6 years old at the time and, used to wearing shoes, but here we are running along a kind of a rock path. So right away, my feet hurt a little, but I had to pick up a rock and try to throw it in the water. And they wanted it to go and to see the splash. Although I think in the final shot you don't really see the splash, but they wanted it to go in. And I tried a rehearsal. We were only allowed to throw 3 rocks in because this is part of LA's drinking water. So I threw one. I couldn't get it there. They tried again. I couldn't get it there. And so when we rolled the first take, they said just do the best you can. And they had Reggie, our prop man, hidden behind a tree, and he looked at when I, slung my arm, and then he waited just a hair beat, and then he tossed the rock into the water. So we didn't even need all 3 takes. We only did 2, and that opening is something I'll always remember. And even occasionally, my mind will drift to that whistling theme because it's pretty catchy.
And we learned some movie magic that day on that set that I'm sure has, made some of your films to the next level. I know your father, Rance, also was a big part of your preparation and getting you ready as a child. And he once pitched a note that really changed the dynamic of the relationship between Opie and Andy. What was that note, and how does that form your approach when you're in discussion and collaboration on set? Because sometimes it's, I guess, good to listen to people, right?
Well, that's the big lesson I took away from being on that show, which was to grow up in an environment where it was fun, it was playful, but there was also hard work. There was time to, and the audience, we had to keep, Andy always kept the audience in mind. And there was a right way and a wrong way to do this work. It looked casual, but it was very precise in reality. And so I learned by witnessing a kind of creative problem solving week in and week out, and I've carried that approach with me throughout my career, and it's meant a lot. The actors did have a voice on that show. Even I was allowed to make suggestions. They never took them, or very rarely, which used to irk me a little bit. But I was a part of that conversation, and even my father, who was just there as a set parent, he was an actor, and people knew and that he was a professional, but he had no authority. But very early on in the first episode, he had this sidebar conversation with Andy, where he said, I see the way they're writing the Opie-Andy relationship, and it's like every other sitcom where, the kid is kind of a wise ass and smarter than the dad in a way, and you make fun of that. And Ronnie can do that. But what if in this relationship, what if Opie actually respected his father? Aren't there other ways that you guys could find some comedy, around a more grounded, honest kind of father-son relationship? And Andy thought about it. And he told me this later. I never heard this from my dad. Andy told me this 30 years later when we were doing one of our reunion specials, that dad had done this. And Andy went to the writers and said, let's model this relationship after Rance and Ronnie. Let's do Andy Opie based on Rance and Ronnie. And, that was when Andy told me that story. Of course, it meant the world to me. And I shared it with my dad, who was still alive at that time. And he said, well, yeah, we had that conversation. But he never wanted to take credit for anything.
That's great to having your pops really mold you, and he's got to be proud looking down on you. This new movie, Eden, it's Ron Howard's most visually mesmerizing thriller yet. It's in theaters this weekend. It's starring Jude Law, also Vanessa Kirby, Sydney Sweeney, she's become a megastar here lately. You were casting her. What was it like casting this particular cast, and what did everybody bring to the table that surprised you? Maybe
I think the script and this really unique set of characters was a kind of a magnet. Actors know that I will try to bring the best out, for them. I love working with actors, and that's known. But it was these characters, and it was a chance to play really, because it really happened, it was a chance to play really bold characters. The character Ana de Armas plays is outrageous. I mean, we dialed this character back from the reality as we understand it. And she's still, one of the most outrageous characters you're going to see this year in a movie. Jude Law's character is a very extreme, intellectual, rigorous, intense guy, I think the characters just attracted them. And what surprised me the most was all three women, Sydney Sweeney, Vanessa Kirby, and Ana de Armas, all did so much research and brought so much creativity to their characters that I really feel of all the movies I've ever made, it's probably the one that's the strongest from a female perspective in terms of the way these characters shift, the way they struggle to survive, the choices they make, the tactics they use, and the outcomes. And so I think that's creatively probably the biggest surprise, and I'm really grateful to all the actors, but the three women really gave us something to remember. I feel.
We can't wait to see it this weekend. Eden will be in theaters with our director here, Ron Howard. Thank you so much for your time, and go Lakers. Maybe we can pull another one out this year.
We'll see how it goes.
All right, Ron. Thank you. Good luck. God bless you, bro. Peace out.
Backstage Pass, hosted by Gentry Thomas. New episodes drop weekly. Stream it on Spotify and Apple Podcasts.